and welcome back to the Chatverse. It's good to see you guys again. And if you're new here, welcome, and we're happy to have you. Mm-hmm. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications so that you never miss one of our videos. Today, we're going to talk about creativity and how important it is. So let's get into that. Hey guys, and welcome back. Like we said before, we're going to talk about creativity and how important it is in different aspects, like jobs, how creative you are, and all kind of stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, the first question is, what do you do that requires you to be creative?
Okay. So, for me, it goes through many aspects of my life, like hobby, personal, professional, that type of a thing. So, just like to skim through it, for my job, I am an artist. So being an artist, you have to be creative. You have to have that type of niche, that type of thought process to be able to create art, to create the idea of what someone's going to work on. And that goes into teaching art, which is another part of my job. So I teach art to many different ages. And when it comes down to that, you have to be creative to make up those lesson plans, to create the craft, to create the art project of what anyone could be working on. And you got to take into account of everyone is not at the same art skill level, and not everyone can approach creativity the same way. So that is how I have to be creative with that. I also do a lot of stuff with theater, where I like to paint sets, design sets, and that you need to be creative because, yes, someone can tell you go paint a house, but how are you going to be creative about that? Like, how are you going to create that? You need to sometimes think outside of the box. Like, for example, when I painted a castle for Beauty and the Beast, I didn't want to paint it looking just all flat with a bunch of square bricks. I needed to be creative. Like, how can I make it look like there's texture to it without physically putting on cement on this or spraying texture spray?
Right.
So I had to get creative and figure out how can I use different colors of grays to layer them. What different brushes can I use to create that? The same when you're designing a set, you got to get creative on a stage space because it's not like you're building an actual house. You're not always building something that's three-dimensional all the way around. Like when you see stuff on a stage, what you see in front of you is sometimes all there is, and there's nothing behind it, just blank. And then also personally and hobby-wise, I like to make things like gifts for people. I do that a lot of times with birthdays and Christmas presents I've done for years, which I did for you this year.
Yes.
And you got to get creative with that so you're not making the same thing every time.
Right.
So there's a lot of different aspects of my life that with creativity, that's basically what I do. And when we do all these videos with editing, you got to be creative and have that creative thought process to get through editing the videos, thinking of topics, all that type of stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. When we started doing this, we had to be like, okay, what are we gonna do that's captivating, that's like engaging, that's fun, and isn't it? Because basically, this is an outlet for creativity. So when I saw this like topic, I was like, well, that's kind of perfect for YouTube because you're creating content. So so that was part of it. What I do that requires me to be creative, I do multiple things. Like Jen said, she does multiple things. So because another one of the questions is like job related. So, but basically, like I deal with stuff with social media content creation, and one of my previous jobs, I dealt with visual management. So I was dealing with visual merchandising and marketing. So I would create a story in a window display and in like the store so that people would get captivated by it and come in and want to buy that like outfit and stuff like that. And people don't think of it being creative, but corporate sends you something that's their creative team that thinks that it's something great, but you yourself know your target audience in your store. So what works at a corporate level and what might work on the West Coast doesn't work on the East Coast all the time.
Which is
so
true.
When they would send me something, I would just use it as a guideline. Like, this is, okay, I'm going to use these kind of products, but I'm not going to style it exactly the same way they do, because if I do, it's not going to get the same reaction that I know my clientele would want. So I would take it as a base level and then build upon that, and I kind of physically had to, well, physically but mentally, like, see it off the page and go, okay, this is how this is going to look in here. I'm going to put this mannequin here. Like, I would obviously do the backdrop the way that they wanted it in the guideline, but the outfits, I put my styling on it, and the district manager, whenever they would come in, never would get mad, because then they would question and go, hey, who did this? Because I know your styling, and this is not up to how your styling is. So they knew my styling sold things, so they never gave me a problem that it was different from what corporate wanted. But yeah, so that required creativity. I don't do that job anymore, but I still do stuff that requires me to be creative. Like, I deal with content creation and stuff like that. Day to day, like, even rearranging stuff in a room or whatever, like, you have to be able to visualize it, so you have to be creative that way. Even when you're landscaping or something, you have to see something and then, you know, make sure it looks right visually. And I think I've always been like that. So that kind of transitions into our next question, which is, how creative are you? Which is kind of like hard to gauge, because I would say I'm pretty creative because I've always been creative, like I said before, but it's kind of like, I don't know how you would gauge how creative you are. I mean, I might be more creative than somebody else that doesn't have like that visual sense of how styling works or something like that, but I might not be as creative as the next person that sees something out of like nothing, like is looking at a blank canvas and goes, oh, this is what I see in my mind and I'm going to put it on there.
Right. See, when I hear that, sometimes people think about that as, how far outside the box does somebody go? When they're working on something or thinking of a concept, are they playing it safe in doing like the bare minimum or basic of something that anybody can just think of?
Or just do whatever's sent to you and just be like...
Correct.
Yeah.
Or is it going so above and beyond that you're doing stuff that other people may not even thought of would be a solution for something?
Right.
So, like, problem solving is a part of being creative. There are people who are not as great as problem solvers or whatnot, so that sometimes deals with, you know, how creative are you? I'm trying to think. I almost want to go with an example with this.
I think it's like I touched on before, when you see something on the page, but then you can go further and see it off the page and like visualize it outside of it and be like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do, like, this is how I gotta build this, and this is how I gotta, like, arrange this.
Yeah. So, okay, that's the example I'm going with. What you were basically just saying. There are people who, they just know how to copy things.
Yeah.
Either looking at an art project, they just copy what they see, like with Pinterest. There are people who will only do a room design based off of what they saw on Pinterest, or only do a project, a house project or an art project based on an exact thing they saw on Pinterest. But how creative you are is how much beyond that can you go.
Yeah.
And sometimes you could say, well, it's almost like when you deal with like the copyright stuff. You're taught with copyright, I want to say, as long as you change it, I don't know if it's like 50 or 75%, you're going beyond that copyright. So that's how you think of, well, how creative are you by, okay, how can you look at something like the store design or an art project? How far beyond that can you go to take that and run with it, but also turn it into something that's your own?
Yeah. And that's like when I said before, the district manager would come in and they would know my styling compared to somebody else's, because somebody else would be like the basic, like, I'm just going to throw something on a mannequin, whereas like I would take the time, I'd tuck like a shirt in, I'd pin this here, I'd roll the sleeve, I would pop a collar, I would do like all these little details that adds to the story as a whole. And when you think about it, you're like, well, how are you telling a story with clothes? You are, because you're trying to sell something. So like when I first was applying for the job and like I got the interview, they had me do a styling challenge. So they gave me a directive, which was like a John Mayer outdoor concert. So I had to style a girl and a guy, so they were going together, and I had to style them. So at first it was hard for me to style a guy, because I was used to only dressing girls.
Did they give you like a mannequin?
No, you had to like go around the store and you take clothing and you just hang it in the dressing rooms.
Oh.
So I would have to put it together, and then at the end of it, when you go back up to them and you say, hey, I'm done, then you had to walk them through the outfit and why you paired this with this and like all of that kind of stuff.
I never knew that they go that deep with some of those interviews.
I had to do it for multiple things. So that's how then I ended up becoming the visual, because of the way I like did detail. Like I rolled the guy's sleeves and so
when I worked at a department store, that's the thing. It was a whole different type of job where it's just, putting the clothes away, making sure everything's neat, doing register, all that. But like they had another crew come in, like it was something like early in the morning or later in the evening, and they would do that where they would get the mannequins, they would put, like you were saying, like they would put it all together. And so that whole thing. I never knew that they did.
Yeah, they do it like intricate, because they're like, you are not only are you going to have to style a mannequin, which is a fake person, but you're going to have to style live people, and they want to see if you're capable of like doing this, and of course with a live person, like you're going to give them stuff that like you think would be their style, but it might be outside of their comfort zone, and like. Sometimes it would go well, and they'd be like, hey, you know what, I never thought to pick this for myself, but I really like this. Or they would go, you know what, this isn't really my style. And you had to kind of roll with it and then just keep trying. So, like, you had to visualize, everybody's body is different. So you had to visualize, like, okay, well, you got to take into account, like, what's their personality? What's their style? Like, you're looking at them top to bottom, what they come in as, and you're like, okay, I think this is kind of your style. But then you kind of throw in those couple extra that you would like, hey, try this,
I feel like I said, since I worked at a department store before, I had that experience, and then hearing that, we were always told to, ask open-ended questions, try to figure out, well, why are they there? Are they shopping for an event and all that stuff? When it came down to it, I almost feel like we should have gotten training for that, like what you were just explaining, because not only can it help you with your sales goal and all of that stuff, that a lot of times that's how you get raises, but at the same time, there are people going out shopping who are not creative. They can't put these outfits together, or sometimes you go to the stores and like, everything's crap. All these clothes are crap, or I don't know how to put stuff together. We all run into that problem. But if you had people in the stores who, like the visual people, if they had the sales associates also being visual people, or maybe they should start hiring people who are like that to actually go through and help other people with their creative mind, to be like, well, how about we piece this and that together, and then it'll make people maybe feel more satisfied or more confident going into stores, because sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, I go into these stores, I go in and out so fast because I glance at stuff, I'm like, oh, this is crap.
Yeah.
Or this, and that, and because in your head, you're not thinking of it creatively of piecing things together, and maybe that's what you need to have that mindset going into these stores, especially now with all the style and all, like, that could be a whole other type of video too.
Yeah.
Talking about that, but it's true, you got to piecemeal stuff together, and if you're not in the mindset to be creative, to put that outfit together for a wedding, for a job interview, at work, any type of that stuff, or even casually, like, you know, that's why they, like, people joke around, like, people don't have style. Because style can be, it's your creativity.
And I always, when I would go through interviews for, like, jobs that pertain to styling and stuff, they would always like when I would be like, everybody's style is different because it's an extension of your personality. So that's, like, your personality is showing through how you dress, and stuff like that. But, like, yeah, they taught us to not only, like, verbally ask somebody, like, hey, what are you here for? You know, what can I help you find? And some people would outright say, yeah, I'm here for this. Like, can you help me put an outfit together? Some people would be like that. Other people would just be like, yeah, I'm not sure what I'm looking for, but I am looking, I have, like, a wedding that I have to go to, or they're like, I have a date, and it's, like, cocktails or whatever. So, then you kind of go off of that, and while you're talking to them, you were trained to look at them and go, okay, you're about this size, like, this is kind of, your personality looks like this, that your style, I'm basing off of what you're dressed like, this is how. Sometimes it would be hard because people would come in just in, like, yoga pants and, like, stuff like that, and you're just like, what's your style? Or they'd be shopping for somebody different, like, I'm shopping for my daughter or something, or I'm picking something up for my girlfriend or some kind of crap like that. So then you would have to be like, you would have to ask those questions, like, well, what's her style? Like, what size does she wear? And that kind of thing. So you had to then get the information to know creatively what you were going to put together for somebody. And yeah, sometimes it was easier to dress a mannequin than a person. But to a sense, like, when I was doing it, I figured, okay, well, they're like a walking, talking mannequin, and they're like a billboard for the company. You're going to want to put them in something that looks good, but that they're comfortable in and fits their style, so then they can confidently walk around in this, and it's not going to just sit in their closet, and they'll be like, oh, why'd I buy this?
That happens all the time.
You know?
Crap,
and then you're just like, oh, God, is it past the time? Can I return this? Whatever. So I always was open with people like that, and I would be like, yeah, you know, I don't want you walking out of here feeling uncomfortable, and you're just going to either return it or leave it in your closet.
There's so many times it's true, people just buy stuff, and it just sits.
So I'm just like, you know, because I'm like, that's how you're going to get more people to come in and be like, hey, where'd you get your outfit from? Hey, like, did you style that yourself? Like, what, you know? And then they tell you, hey, I got it from here, and ask for this person. They know what they're doing. Then it brings the company stuff. And then you know, hey, I know what I'm doing. Like, you know, like, I don't know. But, yeah, so I guess I'm pretty creative, I guess, from all of that, you can say. Let's see. What is the next question is creativity something that can be learned? See, I don't think it can be, like, to an extent. Like, it can be to some degree, but, like, when you're either naturally good at it to, like, see something off of a page, like we were talking about before, and then you might be, like how you said, just able to look at something and copy exactly what is there. So.
I say that at certain angles, yes, it can be taught, and maybe it's people don't have creativity because they weren't taught it.
Yeah. What
I mean by that is, looking at it as an art project perspective, I know from firsthand experience that at different age levels, everyone processes and thinks differently. When you're a young kid, you have a big, wide imagination where that's where they come up with those cockamamie situations
Yeah.
when they're playing with their friends
Mm-hmm.
or they're making an art project and they're like, oh yeah, this is what's happening here, then they're gonna go and do this. Like, they have a whole backstory for even like a freaking stick figure, or it's their mind goes wild. So at a young age, they have this wide open mind where they can be creative.
Mm-hmm.
If you sometimes even throw art supplies at young kids, they can go and create all this stuff. They will go and make their own swords. They will go and create their own imaginary land.
Mm-hmm.
They will go and create their own new species of animals and stuff. But when they get older, a lot of those doors in their brain shut.
Yeah.
Some of it has
kind
to
of dwindles.
Yeah, some of it has to deal with the innocence of imagination and wide open thinking gets closed off naturally. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it has to deal with that people are always afraid of what other people are going to think of what they make.
Yeah.
And then it gets to the point where you have, teenagers, or even when you have adults, any age, where if you give them something, they're like, well, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so what I said how it needs to be taught is you need to teach them how to look at different angles of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's been so many times where if you tell any age of a person or a student, teenager, adult, anybody, well, how about you do a drawing? Well, I don't know what to do. If you then give them options and then go at different angles, well, what if you did this and you did it this way? Well, what if instead of using... It might look a little different now with the angle because we had to switch phones.
Yeah, it's just... we tried filming this video.
This is the third time.
It kept cutting out, so
third time. Okay.
Bear with us.
So what I left off is saying is that a lot of times you need to help people get the gears going in their heads. So you prompt them questions to help them brainstorm, to help them troubleshoot, critical think, because sometimes people can't get that on their own. Like you say, draw a picture, they don't know what to do. They just don't. So you say, well, what about this? What about that? Or maybe they don't like the specific art medium. So you're like, well, what if you use this instead, like chalk pastels or charcoal instead? So there are different ways to get those gears going. So yes, that's the answer to that question that we were on.
Yeah, and I was saying that I think the creator of this question list worded it weird because when it comes to learning creativity, I think like they worded it weird because sometimes it's like naturally derived, but what Jen was saying, it sounds more like you can spark that and ignite the...
and inspire it.
And fan the flames of creativity. So I think it's just worded weird.
Yes.
But,
moving on to the next question.
Yeah, before we get cut off again. Who is the most creative person you know?
Okay. So I will go off of what I said that the clip didn't work.
Yeah, we're talking to dead air.
Yes. So, for me, creativity sparks with why did I go into this career? And it has to do with my high school art teacher. She was someone who gave us the opportunity, our first time in high school, not to do like arts and crafts or these, simple art projects. Mm-hmm. She pushed us where we got to learn how to advance our art, develop our skills, do these other art mediums that maybe like years ago they would really dub it down for younger kids. We got to use more professional art supplies. Yeah. That by using professional art supplies, I feel like really inspires people to want to learn how to use them, work their craft. Right. Also, my grandma, she has the knack for buying a lot of stuff with interior design. Like, she's really good at buying the different throw pillows, different things for around the house. And that also bounces off of you guys, that you guys are really good at, buying different furniture, buying different shelves, knowing what to put on it, arranging things different ways, picking out colors and everything.
What I said before camera was rude. My phone was being rude. I was saying, I guess one of the most creative people that I know is my brother, because he went to art school. He's good at just kind of seeing a drawing and then drawing it. And he works for iHeartRadio. He does graphic design for them. He creates the imagery for podcasts. So if you see some podcasts from them, chances are he's the one who designed them. And then I said Jen as well, because obviously being in art and an art teacher. How important is creativity in your job? Okay, time.
So what I was saying before is, for me, my job is really important, because if you're not going to create lessons or projects that will hook people in, inspire them, or, really make someone interested in something, they're not going to want to do it. And it's going to make my job very difficult. Very difficult. So I got to make sure that when I'm creating a lesson or a project or a craft for any age that, they're going to want to do it. So yeah. I got to make sure that I just don't think it's a good idea, that others would think it's a good idea. Same when it comes to painting and designing theater sets. You want it to be appealing for an audience, so you got to be creative. You want it to look visually nice and appealing. You also need to make sure that from the audience, are you doing the details, I don't want to say good enough, but you want to make sure that the details can be seen that far away too. Yeah. So you might want to make things more bold or more brighter, more darker, so people can see it from a distance. So you got to get creative that way. Even on stage, you want to make sure that when you're painting things, like when I was painting the Beauty and the Beast castle, you got to get creative on how can I make this look like bricks without having it be bricks. So how many different grays can I use? How can I pile it on top of each other with a paintbrush to stipple it or sponge it, so from the audience it looks like there's real bricks. So.
Yeah, it doesn't look like just a cardboard cutout with the paint on it.
Oh, Jennifer just hot glue gunned all this on there. Here's another thing. Here's a piece.
I'm just remembering plays from when we were kids, and it just looked like a flat board with a house outline on it.
It's usually the big, huge rolls of paper that they'll just put, and it's if it falls down, it's just a crinkled mess.
Or they cut out the thing and paste the paper onto some bag. It's awful. That's what I was picturing, and I'm just wow. We were terrible. Ours. God. I just randomly remember some kind of dinosaur play.
So are you saying that your teachers of your past were not creative enough for little kids' plays? Oh my God, there was a play when I was in 6th grade. It was called Let George Do It.
What? I remember some dinosaur play, and I don't even know what it was about. We were singing about fossils and extinction or something. I don't remember.
But it was as an adult or a teenager, you hearing the title of the play, Let George Do It. It sounds so inappropriate, because it was George Washington. Let George do it. He's the man of the hour.
We had some play about the Constitution too. I don't know.
I can't believe I remember this, and that's from 2005, and I remember the lyrics to this. That's ridiculous.
I just vaguely remember this dinosaur play when I was in elementary school. And then a Constitution one. Singing about the Constitution.
Was Nicolas Cage trying to steal your show? We got to steal
I just vaguely remember them. Oh yeah, I didn't even answer this question. Wow. It's extremely important for my job, creativity-wise, because I deal with content creation. So with social media, you have to really always be on top of things, and there's always trends, and you have to market your stuff a certain way to bring in the right audience, and
make sure it's visually appealing.
Yeah, you have to have an aesthetic, so then it doesn't look like a bunch of jumbled mess all over your timeline, because not only are they seeing individual, but if they glance at your page at a whole, they're scrolling, they see a whole thing. So you want the aesthetic to match the whole way down. It's not all craziness. And then you can tell too, if you have a revamp, you can tell when it was your old aesthetic to your new one. So there's that, and then my old job when I worked as a visual manager, it was very important because I was telling a story and I was trying to sell product. So the same with content creation, you're trying to sell something, not to make money, but to bring in people. So you're like marketing yourself, so, or marketing a brand. So yeah, bottom line, it's very important. Now the last question: what profession requires the most creativity? And I know you were talking about before the camera cut off. You were talking about product design stuff.
Yeah, so I think that when people are creating something brand new, like stuff that's not on the market, that's really important to be creative because you want something to be visually pleasing, and not only visually pleasing, but you need to be creative about the product. And this isn't just only like, talk about products though, but it's like when you're, it's the whole thing, can't talk. So it's all about the product. So it could be with technology or with fashion, with clothing, makeup. You want it to set apart from what's already been made before. So you got to really think outside the box. How can I make this different from what came before? So you're not copying stuff from the past. But you can, use it as inspiration, but how can you go way beyond those past designs, past ideas?
Right. Yeah, I think like designers, writers, any of that kind of thing, because like when it's a high competition, artists of any kind, even musicians, when it's anything that you have high competition, like you want to make sure that you're in with the times, like in with the trends and stuff, but at the same time you want to push past that so that like you competing against your competition, you outshine them, so then people want your stuff and not theirs. So that's what like a lot of designers and stuff, you'll see them like really think out of the box and you'll be like, who would wear that in real life? But it's like for runway. So but they do that, and obviously it caught your attention because you're like, what the heck is that? Why are you like walking in a trash bag? But it caught your it caught your attention where you're like, yeah, then some designers, it literally was like a trash bag, and you're like, but it caught your attention, and you're like, okay, well that's different than their competition. So yeah, I mean those kind of things, I think those are high competitive, highly creative outlets, like industries. So yeah, that's all of the questions for this video.
And thank God, because this has been a disaster.
This painstaking
process of filming this. Oh my God.
But you can see YouTube has its challenges, it has its creativity. Yeah. But we overcame it. So we hope you enjoyed this video, if it made any sense at all. Sorry for any skips in it. But yeah, just bear with us. In the comments, go ahead and answer some of these questions for yourself. What do you think is the most creative profession? What do you do that requires creativity? How creative are you? Go ahead and answer any of those questions. Leave a like, subscribe like we said before, and follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. TikTok, we do other things, so it's worth following us over there. And yeah, thank you for joining us in the Chatverse.